Dave Fish, thank you for coming in on a Friday morning.
My pleasure.
Here in
Good to see
Brooklyn.
you.
It's really a pleasure to have you on my show. I'm quite excited to have you and to get into it.
Good. Me too.
So I told you a few seconds ago, is there a little tidbit, little story, little something that the world doesn't know about you, that I don't know about you, that we're about to find out?
I mean, the people close to me probably know this. I don't know how out there it is, but my sort of journey to martial arts was kind of an unusual one. At least I'm told by people that are in the sport, sort of both parts of it. So listen, I'm a little over 5'7" right now. I don't want to say that I'm a big guy now, but I was really small as a kid. Like I think I did all my growing, like my junior year in high school, I probably went from like 5'1" to 5'7", right? I was always the little kid. I was the little kid.
5'1" going into high school?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I was a little kid. Yeah. And because of that, and because I was kind of like a smart kid with maybe a little bit of a attitude, I got picked on a lot. So I had to kind of learn how to defend myself. And I was always kind of gravitated toward defending myself and being able to stand up for myself. And I was very into wrestling for whatever reason. But growing up in New York City, it's changing a little bit now. There were no wrestling programs, just about. There was no opportunity to wrestle in high school. And I always just, for some reason, had an interest in it. It seemed like a cool sport. The people that did it seemed real tough. So when I knew where I was going to college, I said, you know what I do? They have a wrestling team. I'm going to call the coach and see if I can join the wrestling team. Like join a club. Like I didn't have a concept that this was like an NCAA program that recruited people. So it's funny that the memories that stand out for you. I remember being in my parents' bedroom, nervously on the phone, and I had the coach's number and he picked up and how nervous I was. And essentially I said, listen, I'm coming to the school. I'm really into wrestling. Do you think I could come out for the team? I mean, he sort of laughed and said, this isn't a club. Like, we happen to be, it was up in Albany, we are a Greco-Roman Olympic training center. I have a top recruiting class. This is a serious program. We don't teach people how to wrestle. We recruit quality high school wrestlers. So I was really deflated. I get to school, and by chance, I stumble upon a couple of guys that were recruited to the wrestling team. And I told them the story, and they sort of kiddingly said, why don't you come out? The first practice is this date. And for whatever crazy reason, and I start a lot of things I do with, for whatever crazy reason, I went out. And at the first day of practice, I just hit the table. I got to avoid doing that. My talkative hands. All the wrestlers would go into a classroom, and sort of the coach would go around, and everyone would stand up and say, "Hey, my name is Joe Schmo. I'm a two-time All-American," or "I'm a recruit. I was a section finalist," all this stuff. And I happened to be the last person that spoke. I don't know if I positioned myself in like a area where I wouldn't be seen. And it was up to me, and I got up and I said, "Hey, my name is Dave Fish. I never wrestled before. I'd like to learn, but if you give me a chance, I won't quit on you." And the coach said, I already talked to you over the summer. Remember, I told you we don't teach people how to wrestle. I appreciate you coming out, but this isn't going to happen. So we walk out, and
Were you deflated?
I was super deflated, but quickly kind of inflated by the fact that a lot of the guys on the team kind of walked with me and said, "Hey, it's pretty cool that you did that. That was kind of neat. It was funny." And I continued to talk to them. I walked down to the locker room, and I forget who it was, or it was a number of them. They convinced the equipment coach to like give me a locker and equipment. And it's funny with the equipment. I don't know if it's still similar. The equipment was this giant safety pin that you hooked your headgear, jock, shorts, and shirt on. And the idea was you'd throw it in the wash at the end. It would stay together, and then it would be in your locker. And he gave me a locker. It was amazing. So I started coming out. I started just coming out to practice. And coach would read the list of the team, check everyone's there, and he would just ignore me. It was like I was invisible. So I'd sit on the side, and I don't know, at the time I wrestled in a lot of different weight classes. At the time, I was probably around 160, 170. And, I'd wait for the third string 126 pounder that didn't have a partner. And, he would beat the heck out of me, as just because I was there. And I just kept coming out, and he ignored me. And I'd say about 3 to 4 weeks in, I'm working with somebody, obviously not knowing really what I'm doing. And coach came by and he kind of like adjusted my hips and picked up my shoulder and said, this is the way you do it. And from that day on, I was on the roster. And I wrestled 4 years. I was captain my senior year.
Wow.
And, listen, did I have a great record? No, I did not. I was learning on the go. But, I mean, what a great 4 years of just learning how to be a student athlete, really be a student athlete. Got to work with some world-class wrestlers because that was a Greco-Roman training site. I mean, we had amazing people come through that room. And I've lifelong friends. I mean, I'm still friends with that team. We're close, that was great. And that got me into that world. And then the second crazy step, and I did a little bit of Greco-Roman wrestling after that, but I was never going to reach a level where I was going to, compete at a really high level. So that was done. You become an adult. I did a lot of playing football in Central Park for a while. And, I would do my workouts. I'd go to, New York Sports Club and do like the group exercise classes. And I took this one class that I really enjoyed. It was a boxing class, but it wasn't a boxing class. It was like Taibo boxing. I was in a class with like 10 other women and we'd hit the bag. And it was sometimes they'd come around with focus mitts, but it was a great workout. I really loved the instructor. And I started even taking a class with his brother who taught at another location. I really enjoyed just the boxing workout. And I forgot exactly how this came about, but he came in one day and said, I was watching the fire department and the police boxing, really a lot of good amateur boxing out there. He's like, Dave, you should give it a shot. You should sign up for the Golden Gloves, which was a ridiculous thing to tell me to do. I'd never been in a ring. Stupid advice. Went to the Daily News, found the little cutout, sent it in. I got called in for medicals. I mean, this was ridiculous what I was doing.
And you're how old at this point?
At this point, I was 33 or 34, wow. And I only had like a year left to do this. You get aged out. I think it was like the last year I could even do it. So I remember waiting for medicals in this hallway. And when I finally got up there, let's just say I didn't look the part where everybody else was there. I remember the doctor looking at me like, what are you doing here? And he looks at you're a law school professor? Like, are you serious? Yeah, I'm going to go for it. So I got the medicals. I waited. I got a date for a fight. I figured I should just see what a ring is like. So I went down to Gleason's gym and got in a ring just to feel what it was like. And here we go. So I get to the location. It was at some church.
What's your family like? What are your family and friends saying? Are they thinking you're crazy?
Yes, but they're kind of used to it at this point.
Okay,
they know like Dave's doing something ridiculous again, But I had support. People came out to watch this slaughter. And I remember getting there, and first of all, I had no one with me. I didn't have a corner. I didn't have anyone with, and I remember they do the matchups and they throw you that tank top, one blue, one yellow. They threw me the yellow tank top. They gave me gauze and stuff to wrap my hands. I was like, what am I going to do with? I didn't know what to do. So the fire department had someone fighting, and to their credit, the coaches there kind of looked at me and said, this kid, calling myself a kid, I was the oldest guy fighting there. They came over and they were like, you want us to wrap your hands? That'd be great. So they wrapped the hands for me, and they even walked out with me with a bucket. I didn't know what the bucket was going to do. They didn't have anything to they didn't know me. They would go out and do it, They thought I was nuts too, hearing all this. So I get out there. I'd say 15 seconds in, there's a standing 8 count against me. I just start getting punched in the face so many times. Like I've never... Worse than when I got beat up like in grammar school. I think my nose was already bleeding. I'm like, okay, hopefully that's the worst that it's going to get. So I finished the round, and I was in good shape, and I sort of had an aggressive approach by nature. So I was moving forward and just blocking with my head a lot. Yeah. So I get through the first round, pretty beat up, but my conditioning was okay. So I was like, all right, I can get into the second round. Second round, I just went all out, like balls to the wall. I'm going to be super aggressive, try to knock this guy out. And
was he good?
He was pretty. I mean, it was hard for me to judge at the time.
Right, but now that you have the perspective.
Well, I think he probably should have done better against me, given,
Okay.
because I get to the corner after the second round and they're like, dude, this is a tied fight. If you win this round, you're going to win this fight. And I'm assuming the other guy probably was told, you need to win this round, right? So we went out there. Apparently it was a good fight because it was written up in the Daily News the next day as like the fight of the night. But I lost. I lost the decision that was fairly lost. He beat me in the third round. He definitely outboxed me. And then I get to the bathroom and I'm cleaning up all the blood all over my face, and I see my opponent and sort of his corners come in, and even a guy I remember that was like screaming in the corner for him to like kill me, like, you know. And I'm like, what's going on here? And they came in and they were very complimentary. They said, wow, we heard this is like the first time you did this. It's really neat. You ever think about training and doing this? And I was like, nah, this was just sort of like a bucket list thing. I don't know. And then the weird thing about it, how all this stuff comes together, is my daughter, who's 21 at the time, was like, I don't know, she was 4 or 5 years old. And
She's a 2000 baby?
She was a 2000 baby.
Okay.
Yes. She was taking what were called cub classes at Tiger Schulman's in Bayside. And I drop her off, and there is the instructor and the person that was talking to me.
Hilarious.
And he says, you got to try this. You got to try this. And I got other things to do. I'm too busy. It isn't for me. And I took one class, and then, however many years later, I'm still with the crew.
Now, did you kind of fall in love with MMA at the first time you ever did it? Because, I think it'd probably be hard for you at that point in time to imagine that, this is where you'd be perhaps 18, 20 years later.
For the most part, I say I did fall in love with it. I remember some of it being incredibly challenging. I mean, I remember early on, we were just learning how to throw kicks and just really shadow kicking. And I'm in the back and I'm watching all these people in the front do it so flawlessly. And I felt so inept that, is this for me? Am I ever going to be good at this? But that's one of the things that's great about the sport, and many things, but the sport in general, that it is an art, and there's always room to get better. Whether it's your first day or whether you've been a black belt for 15 years, there's always growth, there's always challenges, and that's what makes it, and a lot of other arts and things, whether it's playing the piano or whatever, or painting, so great.
Now, I'm wondering about you, because I've only talked to you for about 10 minutes now, but it seems like you have this big kind of joy to live, joy to throw yourself into things that you're interested by, kind of really throw yourself in the deep end, whether it's the wrestling story or the boxing story. Have you always been like this as a kid? Was it something that was kind of innately brought to you, or is it something that kind of came to you over time?
As far as I can remember, I picture my mom like standing in front of the door saying like, no, I don't want you playing football. It's not for you. Why can't you do something like tennis or chess, And my
mom was the same.
Yeah, I tend to. I mean, with that said, there are some things that I'm terrified of, and I'm terrified of heights. Okay. I would never do this like skydiving and bungee jumping that I see people do. Terrified of that. The other thing is I can't swim. And I'm pretty scared of the water. I got to be honest. Really? Yeah. Like once the water gets like about this high on me,
wait. So you can't swim, or you just choose not to?
I would say both.
Okay.
When I was about 6 years old, I was at a summer camp and I was running around the pool, don't run around the pool, right? Don't run with scissors and don't run around the pool. I ran around the pool. I slipped in. And, my memory is kind of being under there a long time and looking up and being really scared. And
so there's a little trauma in there.
Yeah. Now listen, should I get over it? Yes. But I have this feeling like that I can't swim. Like I will sink.
So you're telling me you're a black belt is in jiu-jitsu? Or
in Tiger Schulman's.
In Tiger Schulman's mixed martial arts. So you're a black belt in mixed martial arts, but you're afraid of the water. Think about that.
Yeah.
Did that ever strike you?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, my family and kids.
You can choke someone out unconsciously right now. You could choke me and Josh out unconsciously.
It has nothing to do with
nothing to do with it.
I mean, yeah.
That's so interesting.
I don't even really like putting my head under the water.
Really?
Like people say, take baby steps, you know,
You
blow
ever taken a
bubbles
bath?
and
You're a shower guy.
I am a shower guy. I'm not afraid of a bath, you know,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm a shower guy, and I just like to put my feet in the
That's
water.
interesting.
Yeah.
You think that you'll ever kind of want to cross that fear?
I want to, right? I mean, it looks great. I see people in the water swimming, and my kids seem to have.
So the ocean, not your thing.
Oh gosh.
Because especially when you look under, there's
I'm
crazy
nervous
shit.
even when I'm in a boat. Like I might end up in the water somehow.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And my kids don't know how to swim, and I know it's important. I know the earth is 3/4 water, and you know,
Wow.
I don't know. I'm really like deathly afraid.
Do you have any other ones other than the heights?
Heights and water, right?
Heights
so like
and water.
power sailing is not for me. Okay?
Yeah, we'll avoid that one. Wow.
Yeah.
So when do you start kind of getting into MMA like full time, and how often are you doing it at that point once you gravitate towards that?
Oh, I was like all in very early on.
Yeah.
You know, I was training like 6 days a week, and if I could train 7 days.
So
a
you're
week.
like 30 what at that point?
So 30. Well, let's figure it out. I started training in about May of 2004.
Okay.
So 33. 33.
Wow. So it's been 17 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Addicted.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning, and I hate when people say they don't have time. I feel like I do have less time to train though now than I did. But I mean, I was there all the time. I was fanatical. I would look at the schedules of other schools and see if I could travel there and take different classes.
Wow.
I mean, I really loved it and love it. I was all in. I mean, that was definitely my life outside of, my family and work. Yeah, it's just great.
What was it about it? Because I know, for the people who have no idea what MMA is or combat sports in general, they think of it as very like a brute-oriented sport. But the thing is that MMA is so complex, and it's so. I mean, you probably know better than most the positive effects physically, mentally, emotionally. For you, what were those kind of positive things that kept you, on it at all times?
Well, I mean, the first thing I think is that, for me at least, and other people are gym rats and they love the process of just working out. I find just lifting weights or running on a treadmill or a Stairmaster boring. I just, and so the idea of being able to get in shape and do something fun, before I did that, I used to love playing basketball, just because I'm running all day and it was fun. It was a game. It was a competition. So to stay in shape and get literally an absolute full body workout, doing something fun and learning as you do it is great. And, I have a fighting spirit in me. I mean, I have to acknowledge that. So the idea of competing against somebody in a physical art is appealing to me. And the really cool thing about mixed martial arts is just what its name is, that, you're combining all of these different skills and, there's a chess match rather than, it's not rather than a brute force game, I'm better in this area, he's better in this area, or she's better in this area. How am I going to use my skills to maximize my strengths and minimize their strengths? And it's an ongoing, interesting growth art, I guess.
Now, how many, I mean, the other, the big thing that stands out to me is, I don't imagine, I could be very wrong, there are not a lot of lawyers that are, rolling or on the mats, multiple times a week. How did you kind of balance work and, getting into, because getting into the sport a little bit later than most, what's that like?
Well, I mean, I think I said this already twice, that I always hear people say, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to do that. You make time for things that you want to do, right? There is actually a lot of time in the day, and if you utilize it well, you can get a lot of things done, things that you enjoy and all that. So, but I did have some things on my side, which were, I started my own practice right out of law school, so I'm my own boss. Now, my boss really are my clients, and my court schedule. But with that said, I have a lot of flexibility with my schedule, right? I could work in the middle of the night and then be free in the morning. I could work 10 hours here and not here. So I, as much as possible, try to work around my work schedule and my family's needs, and I was able to train at times when a lot of other people were training and a lot of other quality people were training. So that definitely helped. Yeah.
So I listened to you on another interview, and you talked about, I think, going to law school in the evening. And that's like, for me, it's not just a New York story, but that's very much someone, hustling in New York, trying to make their way. What was the decision? I mean, first of all, did you imagine when you were younger that law would be a path? And once you made that commitment, were there doubts, or were you in it 100%?
Oh, there are still doubts now. I did not have a clear career path, definitely through college. You try to figure out areas where you may succeed. I was told that I had decent communication skills, speaking, writing. Okay, lawyer is in that world. So I sent some law school applications out, not even sure if I was going to go to law school. I actually had another job working in an assembly person's office. And I started, because I wanted to kind of be in the real world, like start working. And it was great. I got a studio apartment in the city and I was working. I felt like an adult. It was fun being in the city, being 21 and in the city.
That's crazy.
And I decided to start going to law school at night. And listen, I wasn't a stellar student, but it actually wasn't as difficult as I thought the grind would be. Like, I got up, I walked, and then I ended up working at a law firm. I changed jobs where I was working in a law firm that was walking distance from my apartment. So I'd get up, I'd walk to the firm, I'd work there. It was a great place to work. They were incredibly supportive of me. And then I'd jump on the 4, 5, 6 train down to New York Law School, right? I'd leave at 5, I'd get there for my 6 o'clock class. I'd be there until past 9 o'clock. And then I'd usually stay out another too many hours, and rinse and repeat. Yeah.
And how long how long do you do that law school for? A couple years?
Well, if you go regular full-time during the day,
Right.
It's 3 years. Evening programs typically 4. I finished in 3.5 because I took classes during the summer, so I accelerated a little bit. And then again, I don't know why I decided to do this. That's the repeating theme. I hung my own shingle, as they say. I started my own firm. Now, there would be no
Ballsy, no?
chance. It was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary. I felt like it was the right path for me. I would not have been able to do it if the law firm that I worked for during law school did not support me. They gave me an office. They gave me support. And, I continued to do some work for them. And I kind of built my practice by learning how to try cases. One of the ways I did was that there was a judge that got to know me in the Southern District of New York, because I would come in on court cases with the attorneys, and he kind of learned about what I was doing. And he would call me when there was what's called a pro se plaintiff, someone who was unrepresented by counsel. It was coming to trial, and sort of whether they wanted counsel or not at that point, the judge would be like, you need an attorney to try a federal court case. So I would try these cases, and I would kind of learn on the go, and it was a great way to learn. I've tried a lot of cases in my career, and it's something I really enjoy.
So what are what kind of law are you mostly focused in?
I do a fair amount of things, which is a little unusual today. People tend to be very specialized as opposed to like the general practitioners of, the 17 and 1800s. I do a lot of employment law, commercial litigation. I do criminal defense. So I do both civil and criminal work. And then I do a lot of contract negotiation, drafting, review in connection with my MMA, work.
Now, I had also heard that you became later on, I believe, a certified NFL agent.
Yes. So I forget how many years into my practice, and this is sort of how I moved into MMA representation. just because of my employment law work and work with contracts and just love of sports and the NFL, I applied to be a contract advisor, an agent. They call it NFL Players Association contract advisor is the official term, but, a sports agent. And so I went down to DC, I took the course, took the exam, which was surprisingly pretty challenging, but passed that. And then it was like, okay, now how do you get clients? Who wants to sign up with a brand new solo agent with no experience? It was very, very difficult. And it was difficult, one, because, a lot of the top athletes are attracted to the glitz and the glam of the big fancy agencies that also can support a lot of these athletes financially through their camps. I couldn't do that. Yeah. And I also played by the rules. I hate to say that I'm in a minority in the sports agency business by playing by the rules, but I would do research. I would target an athlete that I thought was really interesting and had potential, and I would contact that school's compliance office, and I would fill out really annoying forms. Right. And then I would register with the state and pay a fee. I wouldn't hang out by the field or pay someone to hang out by the field and show them a Rolex that I'm wearing, right? So with that said, I still started to build a client base, and it was really, really fun. I mean, I loved talking with these student athletes, learning about them, helping them achieve their goal of getting on a team, and was able to do that with some of them. The one, probably the pivot when I realized this just wasn't going to work, because I'm not a quitter by nature, but I think sometimes you need to make smart decisions, is I had a path to someone who was at one point was even named as the #1 pick in the draft. Okay. Wow. Person later was drafted number 15. But I had a connection.
Can I ask who it is?
I feel weird saying
Okay, you can tell me maybe after.
Yeah.
Or not at all.
Oh, I'll tell you. Okay. It was Star Lotulelei. It was a defensive tackle for Carolina.
When was this?
I forget the year it was. It was
I remember that name.
Late, maybe 2008 to 2010. It's a rough guess.
Okay, right? Interesting.
I had a friend who was close friends with him that played on the team with him. I flew across the country for the meeting where we were going to get to know each other, and it was like obvious he was going to sign with me. Like that was the idea. Went out there, had a great time with this friend. We went to breakfast. Didn't show up. No call.
Wow.
Even to his friend, no call. Didn't hear from him for days. And then apparently he talked to him later on and said, listen, I feel terrible about this, and I'm sure your guy is great, but I have a family, and I need to train for the combine. I really have no issue when I flip the side, and I need to be taken care of and supported financially as I train for the combine and get ready for my career, my life. So, listen, it was a little hurtful the way it all went down, but I also understand I couldn't do that for him, right? And he needed to do that, and maybe in large part because of that, he had a great NFL career. But I thought to myself, listen, if I can't get a client with such a connect like this, maybe this isn't going to work for me,
Is that crushing for you at the time?
Yeah.
Because you said you're not a quitter by nature.
Yeah, I think it was upsetting. I was really excited about this. This was going to be really my chance to really get involved at a high level and help someone at a high level and negotiate big deals, and that was exciting. But during this time, this little NFL journey, the guys I was training with and the coaches started to look to me and say, hey, Dave, how come you're not representing us? We could use some help. And some of them were actually in some tricky contract situations at the time too. And I said, I don't know why I'm not helping you. Sure. Right. And I started doing it. And when I say doing it, it was so early on, kind of like in the MMA representation world, that I just kind of used the skills I used as an attorney to represent people in contract negotiations or in litigations or in disputes, and just learn the field, made contacts with promoters and with the commissions, and just tried to support these athletes kind of in every aspect of their life so they could focus on sleep, training, nutrition, their family. And I started having success, meaning helping them get out of bad contracts, get into good contracts, have success as athletes as they grew their career. And then I eventually kind of made it a formal part of my practice in representing combat sports athletes. And I would say that I don't want to put down any of the work. I'm fortunate to do what I do. But I would say that and teaching at New York Law School are two things that I love the most.
And you've been teaching, I believe, what, like 17, 18 years?
Started in August of 2003. So I finished about 18 years maybe. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've done that, and you'll always do that, at least.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, law, you know.
And you teach, what do you teach, sports law?
I teach, I've taught a bunch of different classes in the writing department, but right now I've been teaching drafting contracts.
Okay.
Over the last several years, which I know sounds tremendously boring, but I try to keep it interesting.
I feel like you'd keep it.
I try.
Interesting.
Yeah. I try to make it practical. The thing I think about is that, and while I really did love my classes at New York Law School, and it was great, there were so many really practical things, particularly if you wanted to start your own firm, that you're just not taught. It's not part of the curriculum.
Like what? What are some examples?
How to get clients, how to start a law office. What are the things you need to do? The real like nuts and bolts things of, okay, I want to start a firm. What do I need? What are the things I need to file? How should I grow my practice? How should I get involved in bar associations? How do I network? How do I choose a practice area? Just things about being a professional and building your career. I just wasn't taught, and I learned by making the mistakes. So I try to have my students make minimal mistakes, at least there.
What's the number one thing that you maybe wish you knew when you were a young lawyer at the time?
I think spending time, which a lot of people think is wasted time, or you're having fun so you shouldn't be doing it, is going to social events and networking events. And not being afraid to talk about what you do. I've always felt sort of embarrassed, and I'm not a great salesperson. I'm learning to become better. I never wanted to talk too much about myself or what I did, and I've learned that that's a mistake. I mean, you don't have to do it in a braggadocious way or an obnoxious way. But I think letting people know what you do and what you're interested in and the skills that you have is important, because I actually think of the times when people say, I wish I knew you did that. I would have come to you. I would have referred you. I think building your brand early on is important, or trying to build your brand. And I emphasize to a lot of my students, don't be shy about getting out there, going to events, talking about what you do, talking about what your passions are, because you never know when that timing is going to be right. And they're going to say, I need someone like you, or I love your energy there. Come with me. I have a great plan for us, And
I think that's super, that's honestly something that I feel like is great for me to hear as well, being, a young person trying to make hopefully do good things. But, trying to find that fine line of between being braggadocious, as you say, and humble, while also just trying to, let people know who you are. In your eyes, what is perhaps the best way to go about that to someone who it's unnatural to talk about themselves and what they do?
Well, maybe this is a bad way to put it with my fear of swimming, but you do have to throw yourself in the deep end, right? I mean, and again, I tell my students, like, if you're someone who's not good at making an introduction, if you're nervous at a party walking up to someone and introducing yourself, go to a bar association event, right? Because that's, for example, that's an event where people are there to meet other people, right? And it's a safe environment to practice going up to someone and saying, hi, my name's Dave. Who are you? What's your practice? What do you do? How long have you been involved in this bar association? And building rapport and building, relationships, and hopefully meaningful relationships, not handing out business cards. I don't even know if people do that anymore.
I don't know, do they?
Syncing your phone or whatever you do now. I sound tremendously old when I say stuff like that. But I think, going to events, being present, showing up, right? I know those things sound cliche, but they are, because they're real, like showing up, being present, being involved, showing your face. I mean, even now, something that I think is really important is just showing up, at my clients, not just their fights, but going to their gyms, working out with them, being there, being present, seeing what they're going through, meeting their training partners. That's relationship building. And in doing that, other people are going to see your commitment to your client and what you're about. And you grow your potential for more, quality clients.
Now, what % of your time, because obviously you're with Paradigm and you've been with Paradigm a couple years now?
About a year and a half now. Yeah.
And what's it been like to, I guess, be part of that brand? Because, especially for a lot of MMA fans and, people following the UFC world and, MMA in general, they know that Paradigm is, one of the biggest agencies in the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's been amazing. It is such a great organization. And listen, I work there. Of course he's going to say that. But I mean, I can tell you, the people that are there are not only just really brilliant at what they do. Audiatar, who's the founder, always says, we have a team of black belts, right? We have a black belt in digital. We have a black belt in legal. We have a black belt all over the place. But they're really good people. I mean, we just had a sort of a virtual meeting yesterday that was just terrific. We were just, talking about what we value, each of us, what we value and what we hope to bring to the organization. And it was just a great hour of just like building our relationships together. And for someone that's really worked on his own, really his entire career, I didn't know how it would be to be as part of a team. I hear people complaining about their fellow employees and it's cutthroat and this and that. I mean, complete opposite. I mean, everyone's been supportive of each other. And in doing that and having a team like that of experts that actually care about each other, we serve our clients so well. I mean, I think about like how much I did on my own and tried to do for my clients. And listen, I think I did a great job, but of course, as one person, I had limitations. But to have now this team and see what they can do on such a high, like vast level is impressive. I mean, and again, it comes from the top down, from Audie. I mean, there's really nothing we can't do for our clients now. It's amazing the businesses we're building for them, and the expertise that the team brings to every aspect of their life. It's really neat. It's great. I love it.
Now, what exactly, for people out there, kind of more the casual person who doesn't understand what exactly a sports agency might do other than negotiate a contract, what is it like, the holistic view of, if you're a fighter that just signed with Paradigm, what does that look like for you in terms of your benefits of signing with Paradigm as opposed to another agency?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely varies a little bit, just being specific, where someone is in their career as far as the approach we would take and the things we would do. But I sort of mentioned it before. What we do is we say, you take care of the things that you have to take care of, which is your training, your nutrition, your sleep. We even can help with those things too. We can help you with your nutrition. We can help you find a great place to train. We can work with your coaches, but we'll take care of everything else. The really mundane, boring stuff like medicals and licensing and all that, we take that off your plate. We help you with your social media presence, which obviously now is incredibly important. We help you with your sponsorships, getting you, outside income, passive income, really the whole gamut. And obviously it changes as athletes continue in their career and win and become more successful. There are larger platforms that are available. But I would tell you, even some of our newer athletes are gaining access to this incredible platform. And the way I always think about it is, and it's weird for me to say this, because I love the sport and I love our athletes and I support them, but it's a really rough way to make a living, right? You're getting your joints twisted, you're getting punched in the face, kicked in the ribs. My hope is that the athletes do this for a finite period of time, right? They do it while they enjoy it and while they're healthy, and that they leave on their own terms, and then they have tremendous options. Like the way I think about it is we're going to use this vehicle of MMA so that you have so many options for really the vast percentage of your life, right? Fighting should be a small part of your life. You should retire from this career pretty young and healthy. And then you've built your brand. Hopefully you made a good amount of money so that you could do whatever you want. If you want to remain involved in MMA, great. If you want to go to graduate school, great. If you want to open up a daycare center, great. If you want to learn how to paint, how to play the guitar, you can do that now because you're financially stable. You've built a name for yourself that people want to work with you, people want to teach you, people want to learn from you. And I think we do that really well. Thinking about one of our athletes was a incredibly successful UFC fighter, made a lot of money, and he might make more money post-career because first of all, he's so with it.
I think I know who you're talking
yeah,
about.
he's so smart.
He's got one eye, no?
Yeah. And he has such a character about him, and he has such a determination and grit. I mean, I think he's going to make more money. Yeah. And that's great. I mean, I prefer to see our athletes being happy and successful actually after they decide not to get punched in the face anymore. Yeah.
Now, because, I mean, especially at Paradigm, I'm thinking, some of the big names. Is Conor technically under Paradigm?
Yeah.
I mean, he's under Audi. What's it been like to, I don't know if you have any personal interactions with him, Izzy, but, it feels like, at least on the outside looking in, that even those big stars are interacting with, some of the up-and-comers and everyone of that Paradigm family. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely fair to say. Yeah. It's great. And maybe it comes from Audi and it comes for our team, but I feel like all of our athletes, whether they're the most famous athletes in the world, like Conor and Izzy is getting there, and Chris Cyborg, they all support the entire team. Right. It's great. When they see some of our other clients who, you might call up and comers, they take them under the wing, and they're really supportive of the whole team. It's really nice to see. And is it specifically by design, or is it just by the nature of our team? But I happen to also really like our clients as people. Yeah, we're selective. We pick the best of the best, right? In the cage, but they're also really good people, and we feel that spirit like coming from us to them and from them to us, and it makes you want to go to work every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there particular, like, how's it work in terms of, like, are you responsible for a certain, crop of different clients, or you guys all kind of work together?
Yes and no, which I like. There's definitely a point person. An athlete will have their go-to manager that is like their first line, but the way we all see it is Paradigm represents these athletes. We all represent every single athlete on the roster. And while the people that I have like first point of contact with may take up a little bit more of my mind space, I'm always thinking about our whole roster. If I'm, pitching to a potential sponsor, I'm thinking of our whole roster. If I know there's an opening or a potential fight opportunity, I'm thinking of our whole roster, and it's also nice that, and other agencies that maybe do things differently, is the nice thing about us having like a huge staff and not such a ridiculously large roster is that we really can spend time thinking about each and every person on the roster and giving them a lot of time. It's not like we have a roster of hundreds and I have to pick up a piece of paper to even remember who's on our team. I know everyone on our team, and I can always give them the right amount of attention. So it's great. I'm lucky to be there. Very lucky.
Now, you've also been, you've been really in the MMA space for a long time. What's it been like for you, as one of the, I don't want to say MMA OGs maybe, to see kind of the UFC, especially the UFC, but MMA in general, grow, and also for you probably it's been pretty cool to be involved, because maybe you thought in the beginning it was the NFL was your future. You transitioned a little bit more to MMA, and then MMA is, I'd argue the fastest growing sport in the world. What's that been like for you, kind of on the inside looking, on the inside, being an inside member of that growth?
I mean, it's exciting, and at times it's unbelievable because when I was there at the very beginning, it was sort of like this niche sport, and I didn't know if it was going to, get really big, if it was going to be like cornhole or curling or, and to suddenly see, it's being on a major network, it was on Fox, and then it goes to ESPN, and the amount of people now that I run into that understand the sport and know the athletes. When I started, I would talk about the biggest names in the sport, and what? It was, and it was, it had the human cockfighting title, I guess, and it was banned. It was kind of frowned upon almost as a sport. And to see, the respect that the athletes get, they're on the cover of ESPN magazine. Conor is #1 on the Forbes athlete list. It's really great, and it makes me feel like, all right, I jumped into the right. I'll use that analogy again. Pool. Yeah. Jumped in. I was fortunate to pick an area that's growing and continuing to grow. Yeah.
And for you, I mean, I'm curious because, it's at the forefront of the discussion in the MMA world with regards to fighter pay and how they're compensated. And you make, a lot of great points with regards to health and how the way I see it, at least outside looking in, the 300th best NFL player is still making, 1,000 times more than the 300th best MMA, or maybe the 30th best MMA fighter. For you, as someone who's on the negotiating side of those some of those contracts, are you optimistic that A, it'll be improved in the future, and B, as much as you can or can't say, what are those discussions like on the inside of the MMA landscape on how to improve the quality of life? Because for me, it always kind of breaks my heart, if I have a fighter in here that tells me, I got to work my second job. When they're out here, they're a ranked fighter for the UFC.
I do think it is going to improve. I'm skeptical about the speed of it because there's so many challenges to it. There's so many moving parts and challenges. And the one thing I want to make clear is, yes, I'm an advocate for fighter pay, and I want them to be paid more. I don't say that disparaging the promotions because they're businesses, right? I think it's important in almost everything we do to try to put yourself on the other side. Right. They're a business that has to be loyal to its owners, its shareholders, its stockholders, and to run the business intelligently. And if they have people that are going to participate and are going to fight for a certain pay, that's what they're going to pay, right? I understand that. But that's not my job. My job is to advocate for the athlete. And I think they should be making, I'm not throwing this number out there to exaggerate or make up. I think most fighters should be making 10 times the amount they're making. And if you look at other industries, put sports aside for a second. If you're the 10th best software developer in the world, you're making an absurd amount of money. Yeah. If you're the 10th best CEO, 10th best life coach, you're making a ridiculous amount of money. Why is the 10th best, featherweight fighter not making that amount of money?
And taking shots to the head.
Yeah. And working as hard as any other human being on earth. And there were biases against athletes and celebrities. Look, it's so much fun what they get to do. They get to play a game. They get to play a sport their whole life. There's not a lot of playing in their day. Yeah. There really isn't. Their day is waking up early, living a clean life. Their nutrition is on point. They're not enjoying fast food and ice cream and alcohol and any other vice that we might enjoy, and they're training hard, usually at least twice a day, and maybe they take a day off, right? I don't think Julio Arce takes a day off, but
He's a beast.
Him aside, you know, it's a constant grind, becoming one of the best in the world at what you do, and you know what some of these athletes are making. So, and the hardest part of an athlete's career, I think, is probably the most important part. It's talking about an MMA athlete, in that once you become a pro, right? Now you're a pro. I'm a professional. I'm gonna make money doing this now. You have, and if your goal is to make it to a large organization where you're gonna make a decent living, you basically have to work as hard as humanly possible for free. Because people think, oh, you're a pro now, you must be making a good living. Well, making $1,000 to fight, that's what they make, $1,000 to fight when you start to become a pro, and have to train twice a day and pay for supplements and protein and drive to and from your training facility and make sure you have gloves and shin guards and headgear, and you go through gloves quickly, and clean clothing and do laundry 3 times a day. You're paying to fight. And where is your money coming from? Well, you're working that second or third job that you're talking about. So you're working another maybe full-time job while you're training, and you're making no money.
Well, I think it's also counterintuitive, because if they were paid not even just a reasonable, but say a good amount of money, they could, and they weren't spending maybe half their time on trying to have a secondary income so they could just survive, the level would just be superior in my opinion. I mean, we're already talking about the highest performing mixed martial artists in the world, you know, with the UFC, but just for me, it's like, for some of those guys who are maybe top 25, top 30, and some of the top 15 guys, unfortunately, it's like, if they could, you know, instead of doing those 2 days plus their 4 hour of teaching at their gym, what if it was those 2 days plus, you know, 2 hours of recovery that they could get properly, plus 2 hours of whatever else to improve their career? You would just see, I think, ultimately the level of everyone kind of rise. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
I think that's mostly true, and I think you also would definitely open up the pool to more people,
right?
Because there are people that just realize, I can't do this. You know, I have to go another route. I'll become a personal trainer, or I'll open a gym, or I'll go out of athletics completely because it's just not viable, particularly if you have a family. I mean, the sort of the flip side to it is, a lot of people believe, a lot of coaches, and I give it some credit, that people that have it too good, I mean, maybe this is really the other side. You know, you wake up in silk sheets, you're not going to go to the gym and really want to grind. That sometimes that grind and that grittiness and that struggle creates these amazing fighters.
Right. I think it's a little bit of a fine line.
Yes. I'm not sure if it needs to be.
It's what, you know, people say about Conor. It's like, well, does Conor need to fight? No, obviously he doesn't. Does Conor still want to fight? According to him, yes. Does Conor still look good? In my opinion, yes. But at the end of the day, it's like, you put maybe a Conor who's making 50 million and Dustin, who's, well, now Dustin's making probably a couple million. You know, maybe the desire, I mean, I'm sure the desire, it's kind of hard to say, but...
Well, it's need versus desire, right?
Right.
Does Conor and some of these other athletes doing real life need to fight? Of course the answer is no. He could survive not fighting, but he has a fighting spirit in him. I mean, and it's real. And when you get the combination of that, then you have, you know, he's the, I don't know what you'd call him, a blue unicorn, right? Yeah. He comes along very, very rarely, someone like that has built such an incredible empire for themselves, but also has that fighting spirit, you know. Right. He wants to be in there.
I'm curious in terms of, from the negotiation standpoint, because you're in the NFL and the UFC, how different is negotiating an NFL contract from a UFC contract?
The similarities is that, for the most part, the first contract is somewhat standard. Okay. There isn't that much deviation, you know, for a first contract. Now, it's all based on leverage and desire. If you have a particularly special athlete who's a free agent come to the organizations, you have some flexibility with certain terms and certain benefits. But I think that the creativity comes into play once that athlete has established themselves in the league or in the MMA universe and has built a following and a popularity, is when you could start playing a lot more with the numbers and the benefits and, the tickets and the other fringe benefits they get. And I mean, I think obviously you need a quality athlete, but I think the way to do that is to be consistent and honest in your dealings with the organization. So they know you say what you mean and you mean what you say, and then you're going to follow through on things you say you're going to do. I think those skills are transferable to any kind of negotiation. Yeah.
How have you improved as a negotiator over time?
I mean, listen, just the reps get you better, right? In anything. So just the reps get you better. It's an interesting question, because to some degree, I feel like I've done it well for a while. Maybe the way that I've improved most is really being, I've always been honest with my clients, but being maybe more blunt and straight to the point, and managing my clients' expectations properly. I think while we all have sort of self-doubt, we also tend to all think we're worth more than we're worth. Not to say you're not worth the moon, right? Worth it all, but what is the reality, right? What is the market going to bear? And I feel like educating the client more so that we're like on the same page and together about what I'm going to go forward and do makes me more effective. I have the full confidence and feel like I'm really a team with my client going forward, rather than that feeling of trying to stretch beyond a realistic negotiating universe, just because my client mistakenly thinks that's where I should be, but rather really educating them and saying, listen, I'm always going to try to do the best I can for you and everything. But this is realistically the universe of where we can be right now. Let's go and get that. And let's keep climbing and doing better, rather than feeling like I got to stretch and disappoint and also make demands with the other side maybe that aren't realistic, right? That's when you start to lose your credibility, right? When I know, listen, the market bears this, and this isn't anything. This doesn't have to be an MMA. I know the market reasonably bears this, but I come in pounding the table asking for 3 times that amount. Fish, where's this coming from, right? Are you talking to your client? So I've tried to really spend more time just educating my client on the business also, so that we can really move forward together in a smart and effective way.
Do you, when you're trying to refine those tools, do you kind of take time to self-reflect on how you can be a better agent or a better, a better professional in general?
All the time, yeah.
What's that look like?
It's reading, it's listening to podcasts, it's reflecting on my performance in the past. It's writing down short-term and long-term goals. How am I going to get there? Where am I weak I want to get here. I know I have the skills, to get there, but maybe I'm a little weak in this area. How can I improve that? I read, I listen to people that are smarter than me. And I enjoy that. I love learning new practice areas. I love learning new skills. I love reading about negotiation and mediation and using skills to bring people together, to build better relationships. And that's a lifelong process. I mean, as good as I may believe I am at what I do, I get so far to go. So and I like that. I don't need to get to the finish line. I do like the process. And I think if you immerse yourself in the process, again, I know this is like a cliche thing, but it's so true. If you just enjoy the process and the journey, you're going to pass a lot of finish lines on the way. You are, you know, because there's no end zone. There's no end line.
Right.
I don't want to get there really. I want to keep going. You know?
What are some of those short and long-term goals you have for yourself personally?
I mean, short and long-term goals are to have the people around me feel safe and taken care of, family, friends, and clients. I always want people that I interact with feel like I got their back. Like, Dave's here, things are going to be okay. So that's always like the big goal. And in getting there, I mean, I want to learn more. I want to grow my body of knowledge and skills. I mean, in the short term, right now, I'm trying to learn more about Bitcoin and NFTs because that's an emerging area and an area,
especially for athletes.
Yeah, an area where
crazy.
where revenue can be made. And I know I don't have a lot of knowledge there. So I've been doing a lot of reading and taking a little bit of like an online continuing legal education course in that.
All your contracts are gonna be in Bitcoin soon.
Maybe, yeah. And I kind of don't even know what that means as you say it. That's why I'm still learning that area. Yeah, I mean, grow my short term to long term also is to grow my existing clients' revenue, particularly passive non-fighting revenue, trying to build their partnerships and sponsorship, revenue, and their ability to build like passive incomes is something that I'm always thinking about and always working on. And I mean, it goes back to the first thing I said, building relationships with the rest of, my Paradigm team, teaching them things that I know and can help them with, and learning from them. And I just think in doing that process is going to serve our clients, So I don't know if that answered the question really.
It answered it beautifully. Okay. Well, let me tell you, it's really been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I learned a lot from you. For me personally, I've always, when I was younger, I was like, oh, I want to be an agent or a general manager or something like that, and I'm still in the process of really finishing up school and figuring that out. But you've been incredibly insightful, and I think that listening to your journey at least is super interesting. So thank you for coming out today and coming on my show.
Hear that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram at felix.levine, and if you have something to say, please leave a comment.